Hi everybody, it's just Pip here. So I just wanted to share something that I had been thinking of. So today is actually the 1st of January 2022, and I made a very tough decision today to not spend it with my family. I am actually doing some work on myself. I need to really catch up. But anyway, this is just a bit of a thought about why is it that sometimes we want to be successful and yet we keep going back to things that are, the same old. Because I've seen this not only in my family, um, my relatives who have jobs that they are not happy in, but they keep doing them because kind of that's a safer option. And I've certainly noticed this in myself. So I've had a couple of businesses now, and I always seem to get to the same point and just kind of not go any farther when things kind of get a bit more serious, or it's ready to expand or scale after that kind of launch period. So I was thinking today about who I really am and you know what are my core values, because I really want to build a profitable business this year, and I was made aware by somebody that it's very difficult to build a business and then to scale a business if it's not based on your core values. And I had never honestly heard of this, and it sounds so obvious when you mention it. But I always had kind of me here and then my business here. So I was kind of like behind my business going, oh no, this is my business, this is my front page. And I was kind of behind it. Um, and I've done some study anyway, and I wrote out some of my core values, which are basically rest, family time. Note that this does not mean giving all your time to your family or giving them financial/material things. Number 3, keeping it simple, not overexerting yourself. I have done that before and made myself really quite ill, but not really had any results, or not got the results that I wanted, got the results that I should have got, but not been feeling great in myself. OQP, only quality people, Les Brown talks a lot about that. And 5, not doing things that don't serve you or you don't want to do. So I discovered in my life that I am very geared towards when I do something, I do it either because I don't want to do it, but there's a gain for me, either in terms of health or otherwise, or I want to do it even if it's not a gain to me. So this was something I was reflecting on when I think about family. So as I say, one of my values is family time. It's not always a benefit to me to spend time with my family. I know that sounds really bizarre. Um, and it's not, to be honest with you, something I always want to do because they have obviously a particular mindset. And I want to be very careful who and what core values I put myself around, because I know how easily I absorb other people's core values. And if you're not sure of yourself, or if you've never been taught to look at who you are, like me, I'm only being taught now to kind of look at these sorts of things. And I am someone who actually got really good grades in school. It is really eye-opening to me what I have not been taught, that is so fundamental to adult life. And with regards to that, I wrote something down, and it's about mental programming. So I have learned I always go for the thing that makes my life more simple, even if the alternative would bring more success, either in terms of perceived prestige or financial wealth. You know, when you go to a wedding or a family thing and people say, oh, what are you doing? And everyone kind of plays the game of saying, oh, I do this or I do that. And it's a really bizarre game to play. This is because the dominating thoughts in my mind are geared towards emotional safety as opposed to financial security, etc., which has been secondary. This was reinforced from a young age when the easiest thing to do was what our parents, childminder, nursery staff, or teachers said. So, in my case in particular, I was at nursery from a very young age, and then onto the childminders around the age of 3 or 4. Spent most of my childhood there, if I'm totally honest with you, when I wasn't at school. And of course, you're taught from a really early age, before you can really make any kind of conscious decision, that you do as you're told. And as obviously as a child, you don't really have a choice, because if you say no, your parent will grab you by the hand and drag you off to wherever, it is that they want you to go. Say, they're going into town, and you, as a kid, it's not that exciting. They will grab you by the hand and push you in that pushchair, kicking and screaming. You don't really have a choice. This conditioning was taught all the way through school in order to fit in and for avoidance of punishment. However, children are taught nothing of streamlining tasks to include only actions that merit them with the results the individual wants personally to gain, regardless of what the state desires. So that might be, for me, for example, so a lot of people know that in the UK, schools are funded based on the grades that their pupils get. So they're very much pushing towards the higher grades. So in my school, for example, in my final high school, this was in a way quite sad, because the way it was shown was that there was sort of sets of people. So set 1 was kind of the brightest kids, and set 5 was unfortunately the kids who probably needed the most help. But I feel that the top sets that I was in got the best teachers. And I'm not sure that that is right, because I certainly had friends who were in the middle sets and they didn't have good teachers, and yet they could have done with having the best teachers because they needed more help. And it's very kind of corrupt, I'm going to be blunt with you. The UK education system is, the people who need the most help do not get the most help, and I feel that this is wrong, basically. Anyway, children are never taught to do that. And I just want to say that having got very good grades in school, that did not serve me when I left school at all, because as we know, all the education goes into the conscious part of the mind, but it's the subconscious part of the mind that actually determines your actions. Students are never taught to set C-type goals, that is your fantasy goal. We're told, stop staring out the window and do as I'm telling you. Can you imagine trying to tell your teacher that you didn't do your homework because you were too busy concentrating on what you really wanted to achieve in life, this big fantasy goal? I'm not sure that would go down too well. Alternate decisions in an effective manner. So even if in doubt with decision making, or with a focus on results rather than tasks, even if their mindset was sort of programmed like that, a kid when they were in school, they might still fall short because they're not taught, they've got these skills but they have nowhere to direct them towards, they have no goal. This is important, especially with regards to earning money after we leave school, as money has an emotional value as well as a physical value. So a physical value, a pound is a pound. Obviously, I'm not going to go into the fluctuations of that. A pound can buy you a loaf of bread in some shops and not in others. It can buy you 2 loaves in some. So money is very, a pound is still fluctuating value, but it has an emotional value. And the emotional value can return your perceived quality of life, and perhaps even your internal views of yourself, your self-esteem, which of course then affects everything else, what you do, what you think you can achieve, everything. So what is the emotional value of what you are bringing? So I also thought about this in terms of people like Mother Teresa and Gandhi. So they weren't known for being multimillionaires, quite the opposite actually. And I don't know much about either of those two, but what I do understand is they are sort of famed for the value, the non-physical value, the non-material value that they gave to the world. And I think in this day and age, we're so busy concentrating on this bizarre lifestyle of a massive house and a pool and a fast car, which is fine if you want to go driving and you love swimming and you like dusting, I'm sure. And you have lots of people that you want to live with. But I also know, having studied, not studied, but being aware of, celebrities like, I don't know, the Kardashians, goodness knows why they are famous. They might have all this financial wealth, but in terms of their internal wealth, I'm going to be honest with you, I really don't rate them. I really don't. I think that they are vulgar and vain, and I know that they are very clever because they do know how to work the media, or they can employ people who know how to work the media for them. Same with Donald Trump. He's exactly the same. And yet, to be honest with you, I would not want to be seen in the same town or city as him. I would find the nearest escape exit, basically. I would not want to be within the vicinity of somebody like that, because I think that I have hopefully better internal values, regardless of perceived position or financial wealth. But I did want to just want to share that with you about how we're programmed, and how I realize that I am programmed towards more doing the easiest thing to kind of avoid conflict and to avoid hardship. It's not a very popular thing in this day and age. I'm not sure if it ever has been, to go for the hardest thing. We are naturally geared towards the easiest thing. And I think as well, I was thinking about being a middle class, so I've always been middle class, and of course there's lots of different levels of middle class. There's kind of, you're just kind of out of working class, and then there's a top middle class, and there's all sorts of different levels. But I think the middle class thinking is the sort of thinking where you go for the simplest thing and you get a stable, steady job and everything's kind of okay. Whereas I think that kind of working class thinking is more sort of, forgive me for saying this, but you don't really think about tomorrow, you just kind of live for today. And I think kind of, I would say upper class thinking, that's not to say more wealthy people, but higher quality people are more geared towards, they won't settle for okay. They won't settle for okay. Okay is good, but they're always looking to build on it, and it's a totally different mindset, I think, from being middle class, where you kind of settle and go, as long as everything's all right, don't rock the boat. Whereas I think higher quality people are more geared towards, as I say, improving upon that, going, how can we make this better, and taking those risks, not because they're financially better off. Can you imagine Mother Teresa trying to make the decisions that she's made based on financial wealth? I don't think that would have resulted in the same consequences. But because that is a mindset within them, because they feel that they want to have the best and not just settle for second or third place, basically. And it's not about competition, it's just because they want to see how far they can take things in terms of, growth and development, which is all, as I'm learning, kind of geared inside of us as our kind of a natural innate being. So I just wanted to share that with you. I'm not going to kind of go further on into like Maslow's levels of hierarchy, if you've come across that, which is basically about how you normally, you are emotionally geared towards having certain things in place. Like, it's very hard to think about getting a promotion when you haven't got a roof over your head, for example. You have to get certain things in place. And I think that kind of affects kind of the class system. I know people say there's not a class system in this country. There is definitely a class system in this country. And there has, and I think there always will be. Same as in other countries, we just are a bit more like, oh, we mustn't talk about it because we mustn't put people in a box. But there is definitely a class system. But I did want to just shine the light on those things that we are not kind of taught, and how we are conditioned, and how I've just realised today that this is affecting me. So I hope that's helped someone out there, and hopefully you have a very wonderful year, no matter which year you're watching this in, and I wish you all the best. Bye bye now.